program, but concluding this panel, we are very honored to have a guest from Norway, our neighboring country, to present the difference in the attitude and the views of the Belt and Road and China in both Norway and Sweden. Mr. Thore Vestby, former member of the Norwegian Parliament and honorary mayor of Thore. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor for me, distinguished guests and honorable ambassadors, to come to my second country. I was born and raised just 30 kilometers from Sweden. In the 50s, 60s, we were quite poor, but happy. But Sweden had it all. They made cars and airplanes and industry and things, and even have free channels on the radio. So I was so happy to get my first FM radio at the age of 14, so I could listen to this. I am coming here as a Norwegian, blue-eyed, naive Norwegian. That's what we are, and we like to be it. And my comments about similarities and differences is based on that. It is a straightforward comments I'm coming with, and it's not totally free of diplomatic filters, but it is quite straightforward, and my personal ones. Well, geographically, we are at the same spot on the globe, almost. Our culture is quite similar, almost. Well, we have the jokes for the Swedes, and the Swedes have the same jokes for the Norwegians. And we are, in a way, in the same situation as described about Sweden and the media. I can give this example that the Norwegian Broadcasting Company was representative in Brussels, was covering the big meeting in Easter time. The Prime Minister was there, very young, and he used the expression the Road and Belt Initiative. He didn't even know the name. And that is the official Norwegian attitude. It is really embarrassing, it is really a shame. And we are, I think, the man in the street, and everybody is on the street, are thinking about China, and they are thinking about Mao Zedong, and they are thinking about the 70s. We have not really developed much. So I am happy to contribute to try to teach the Norwegians what's really going on. To mention some differences, we have not been an industrial country like Sweden has been for the last 200 years. Well, we are catching up. But starting in the 50s until the early 70s, when we had the oil and we developed our skills of exploring the oil and the educational things around that, we are now really catching up, but we are not having that in our genes like the Swedes are having. We were the little brother, Sweden were the big brother. Now we are brothers. We are in NATO. Sweden is considering joining NATO. I really hope you don't. My personal opinion is that when after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact went down, NATO should also go down. It didn't. I feel that NATO is too aggressive these days. And we are so very much dependent on what Pentagon is saying. A peace researcher, a well-known peace researcher in Norway, that we haven't had a foreign policy since World War II. We are just doing like the Americans are telling us to. And that is also very much the case with the Secretary General in NATO, who is from Norway. So that is probably also blocking the good news and the understanding of Chinese culture and what's going on in China and why they are so successful. Another difference is that you had Alfred Nobel, who started the Nobel Prizes, and he gave Norway the opportunity to give the Peace Prize. Well, we haven't been very successful we have been quite successful with that, with some exceptions, especially one giving to a dissident in China, Liu Xiaobo, in 2010. It went immediately into a diplomatic freeze, and we had that freeze for 7 years. We were completely played checkmate by China. I was meeting very often with the foreign minister, the Secretary of State in Norway, in that period of time, and he was just blocked. Our actions couldn't do nothing. So we were let into their warmth by the end of 2017, and we had to sign, and we agreed to sign, that we will never again interfere in internal Chinese matters, which I think is very good. And China is doing the same to other countries. I think that is a very good principle. Last week we had the Constitution Day in Norway. It is a very big day for us. It's actually almost world famous, the way that we celebrate it. And we had a huge delegation from China. Number 3, Mr. Li Sanshu, the leader of the Party's Congress, was in Norway and watched it. And they made some good deals. They opened more up, and the press was, of course, talking about the negative things, while the government and the delegation were talking about the positive things. We are differencing us from Sweden because we have more land up in the north, to the Sea of Barents and the Arctic. That is a very interesting area for the Chinese, because as the ice now melts, there has become a new Silk Road, the Arctic Silk Road. So there has been container ships going from China and the Northwest Passage and to St. Petersburg. It's gonna stop in the north of Norway at the city of Kirkenes, and they're gonna build a railway from Kirkenes to Haparanda, and then it's gonna be a hub in Finland, and then a tunnel to Europe from Finland. It is very promising. I'm sorry to say, Swedes, but we have more fish than you have. We don't have enough, so we grow them. And that is of very, very high interest for the Chinese and for us. We sell every fish fresh. Last week, a direct line from Beijing to Oslo was opened, and on the first return there were 13 tons of salmon. And of course we have the oil and gas industry. So that was, in a way, history. So what is happening exactly today? How do we look upon the Belt and Road Initiative? As I said, the man in the street are having very old-fashioned thinking and knowledge about China. And yesterday, the Confederation of Enterprises and Small and Medium-Sized Businesses, they released a report called Challenges and Possibilities for Norwegian Business in China. It was a very positive report. I think it was very balanced because I think to make the Norwegians understand the impact of Belt and Road Initiative and the basics in it, we should learn the people step by step, and the businesses also step by step. But they have some. I will mention a few points that was mentioned that I find very interesting. It's very much these days in the talking, the IPR, the rights about patents and things. And let me tell you a story about a Norwegian company who, when the King and Queen had a visit in China last year, they were in the delegation and they made a deal with a big company in China about remote healthcare. You can, for 3 diseases, you can do it remotely and you can talk by WeChat. We do a WeChat conference with the patient without going to the patient. Very promising and very much of interest in China. So they thought, what about the source code? What do we do with the source code? It can be copied. But this quite small company, they realized very fast that to protect it, then it will require so much resources, so we will break our neck by the cost of the protection. And on the other hand, China is so big, so let them take it. China is big enough for a lot of us. And I think also now they're talking about the Chinese who are stealing patents from mostly America. And I noticed the answer to the owner of Huawei, Mr. Ren. He said that we are so happy for all the good things that come from America. But I can tell you that the copying will turn around because the innovation in China now is so massive. They are overdoing the rest of the world now, and they will do that in a higher and higher extent. So I guess the one who's going to steal in the future, that is us. And I think also these rights will go into another area. It's about sharing and it's about developing. One other interesting point from that report is that we are now more looking on China as a market. Up till now, we have mostly looked about China as the producer of things that we import. Now we see China as a market. And that is exactly in the atmosphere of the Belt and Road Initiative. It is about sharing. It's a win-win in both ways. And as the middle class in China raises from, I heard 200 millions 3 years ago, 2020, 300 millions, 2025, 600 millions middle class. They can buy a lot from all over the world, including Norway, including Sweden, Europe. So that is that possibility. So it's interesting to see that companies even in Norway are looking at China as a market. And there has also been a change in the rhetorics from the government side. just a couple of years ago, they said that when talking to China, it was about when the opening or the release of the diplomatic freeze, we have in discussion with China, we must promote Norwegian values. That has now changed. And that tells me that they are following the situation quite close and have a good relation to China, because now the government are saying we have to protect our own values. So this is a very big change in how we look upon China. I think that is positive. What I am afraid of is that the polarization between America and China and the world is getting bigger and bigger. And I must say that the American president is doing his best to achieve that by the latest announcement about blacklisting products from Android, Google and things. It is just terrible. It's not the way that we like, the world like, but this is, in a way, maybe one of the last things in that trade war they're going to be, because now he is hitting me and you on the mobile phone. So I think there's going to be an interesting development on that. What I think is important for Norwegians to understand is that if you're looking on this polarization of the Americans or the Chinese culture, America is steadily saying that we are number one and we want to be number one. And they say that China is challenging that position. China is not challenging the way that I see it. China don't care about the ranking. They can be number 10 if they're happy. They can be number 40 if they're happy. China wants to be happy. China wants to do good. They don't care about the ranking. So I think it is a way of making an enemy. They like to put it black and white. That is not the Chinese style. It's absolutely more pragmatic. And when the Americans and Norwegians are putting the individual first, the Chinese are putting the country first. So I think it's important that, to look upon China, you have to look upon it from the inside, not from the outside. And when Steve Bannon, when he is a man that are focusing on the differences, managed to put Donald Trump in the White House, it must be a crash. China are looking for common ground, and that is not what the president do. He is looking for the differences. So it is tempting to say that you probably know the expression, ask not what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So what I think America needs is another Kennedy. Then they can talk to the Chinese. So, and then we can have a shared future for mankind. Thank you.